We're going to enjoy ourselves. The same token, we want to be able to learn. That's the whole idea. So when we go to the book of Acts chapter 17, Paul now has gone to certain places. After Acts 15, which is the council, the Nazarene council, in which Paul now has the legal, approval of the elders to teach, he goes on a missionary journey. Okay? Now, we got to remember, if we do not understand the culture of his time, we're going to miss a lot of details about really what's going on. So let us get into the details. I'm going to try to read as much as I can what's relevant with this, but I want to focus mainly on when we get to Athens and when we get to the Areopagus. Hopefully I have enough time to get there. Tomorrow we'll cover Corinth, chapter 18. I'll go as far as I can. Hopefully you'll come back tomorrow, okay? If you don't come back tomorrow, then forget you then. Now after the day, they traveled through Amphipolis and Apollonia. Apollonia, again, is modern-day Kabbalah. Amphipolis is one of the cities that were there. I was able to be there. I was able to show up and go to that particular town. This is part of the archaeological evidence that I saw there. It's right next to the sea. It's quite interesting when you show up. And I was able to learn a lot about that location and its importance. We didn't get a chance to guide through because there was not many people go there, but it's a very important thing. It's next to a river. And it was a very important town at one point during the time of the Peloponnesian Wars in the year 431 to 404 BC. It belonged mainly to the Seleucid or the Greek kingdom at that time. We're not really going to focus on that too much. But it is important that we understand really the travel. They traveled through. How did they travel? Now, I showed you and I told you earlier about the way they built, the way they built and the roads. We're going to cover that a little bit because many people, they don't put enough importance into how they traveled. And I think one of the things that I had a question mark all these years was, how in the world did Paul managed to get the message out so quickly? I wonder about that. I mean, and it wasn't until I went to these places that I really understood it better. Again, this is the road that was still in use into the late 1800s and early 1900s. And this was actually on the way to Philippi, and then going down this way, where you going, I'm looking up, as a matter of fact. But behind me on that picture, it was actually on the way down to Kabbalah, which is, what's the name of that? Give me a second. Apollonia. That's what Apollonia will be. Okay? Okay, so when you look into the roads and you know how they build, this is the same road within the city of Philippi. Now, right near here, and some of the rubble here, is the Bema. If you follow my cursor, you see it? You know, the Bema is somewhere around here. And I was able to go there and stand there. And it is important. You see, this is the road. I was so excited about learning about this road. Out of all things that you go, why is the road so important? I understood so much about the system of religion and the Greco-Roman world, how it functioned. And I learned a lot about the message of Paul and how quickly spread through the kingdom. If anyone has to go right through the middle of town when they're going from east to west, right? And you come from Persia, you come from whatever, you want to go to Greece, you got to go through here, unless you go on a ship, right? Now imagine you go right through the middle of town, and then all of a sudden you hear this guy teaching about the gospel and how God defeated death through the resurrection of the Messiah. And then you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then you go back to your town. I mean, we don't realize the logistical intelligence that Paul had. Logistics. He went to every major place where you have the largest amount of people that you can reach in a short time. Corinth, for example. Ephesus. Philippi. Thessalonica. He went to Rome. He went to all these places with the vast majority of people, a small metropolis, Well, 145,000 in Ephesus. That's huge. Back in that day, You know, Rome was 1 million. That's a lot of people. And they're always coming in and out in the kingdom. No wonder it spread so vast and so fast. Now, this is the way they made the roads. Man, the Romans should be building roads again because they made it last. That's proof. No. He did an amazing job doing nothing. Okay? Now, let me tell you a little bit about this. I didn't really read much. I show you the video, but I really didn't tell you a lot. And I really want you to get a little bit out of it. Okay? There's relevance in something that seems so kind of, why do I need to know that? But it is important. Let me go here so we can all read it. All right, it says, the Agnesian Way, Latin for Via Agnatia, major Roman road stretching approximately 450 miles, 725 kilometers. I said 245, so that was wrong. From the Adriatic coast of the Balkan Peninsula, right, in the west to the Hellespont and Byzantium, Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul, on the east. Biblical relevance is actually spoken of in chapter 16, verse 11 to 12. Okay? It's talking about Paul arrives in Philippi after sailing from Troas, Asia Minor, and to the Macedonian port of Neapolis, modern-day Kabbalah. He and his companions traveled overland approximately 10 miles, 16 kilometers, along the Agnesian Way to their destination. And I walked on that road. I was there. Not all 10 miles, but I walked about 30 feet. Okay? Via Agnatia crossed the ridge that separated Neapolis port from Philippi within the ancient Philippian walls, 20 foot wide, 6 meters wide, that were the walls. Agnesian Way constituted the Decumanus Maximus, linking the east to the western gates of Philippi and forming the Philippian Forum northern boundary beyond the western gate. The road crossed the Ganges River near the traditional site of the encounter of Paul and Lydia. So there's a lot of historical importance here. When it comes to military significance, not too far from Philippi, you find the battle in which Brutus and Cassius, they fought against Augustus and Mark Antony. So this is a very important place because the whole empire and the Roman Empire developed in this area after this main battle there. And then this year, this is one of the places I'm going to go to the place where the battle occurred. Okay? So it is an important thing to understand that the world changed after this battle took place. I mean, this is where Pax Romana really took place under Augustus. So this particular battle is what facilitated for the gospel to explode throughout the whole kingdom. So that's why I teach you these little details that are historical by nature, but I want you to understand its significance when it comes to history and biblical history. Hardly ever is ever mentioned. Okay? All right. So now we know how they travel. This is cool. Watch this. Let's talk about the synagogue. Let me read the verse. I'm sorry, I'm not reading the verse. It says, and now after they traveled through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. As was his custom, Paul went into them on the Sabbath, on 3 Sabbath days. He discussed with them from the scriptures explaining and demonstrating that it was necessary for the Messiah to suffer, to rise from the dead, saying, this Yeshua whom I am proclaiming to you is the Messiah. Wait a minute. What is the only book they have? When this was written, what was the only book they were using in the synagogue? The Torah, the prophets and the writings, maybe in the Septuagint and the Greek and the Hebrew. So let me get this straight. So Paul is going to a synagogue where he doesn't know anybody. And he begins to teach them about the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah. Only from the Torah and the prophets? Why can't we do that? Why don't we? I mean, I challenge any of us to go to a synagogue right now and talk to a rabbi and say, okay, let me talk to you about the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah in that text. None of us are equipped to do so. But yet Paul was, and Peter was, And James was. And all these people were, but we're not. And here we are arguing about everything under heaven. But if an Orthodox rabbi comes through that door and says, hey, can you show me through scriptures that this Messiah that you follow, Jesus, is the Messiah that I'm searching for? Paul did it. Why can't we? So I'm sorry, I don't have time to argue about petty arguments in the movement when we're not equipped to really show the gospel to the people, to the Jew first and then the Gentile. We lost our mandate. And I don't mean missionary work. You have no business doing no missionary work, telling them the gospel the way we were presented in the Christian church, because that's only going to repel the Jew. One thing is talking about Yeshua to people within the kingdom. Another thing is sitting down on a table with an Orthodox and explaining what you believe without compromising your values and what you believe in him, and then he accepting you for who you are, because they have a lot to offer. So I want to challenge you. Why Paul can go to the synagogue and then obviously emit an impact, because many believed. Everywhere he went, many believed. So let me challenge you with this question. Please don't answer if you heard this already. Okay? What is the only thing the Torah cannot do for you? The Torah has one thing it cannot do for you. From what? From death. But wait a minute, there was forgiveness in the Bible. Leviticus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, there was forgiveness for sins. Leviticus 16, there was forgiveness for sins on Yom Kippur. So what do I need Jesus for? Come on now, let's go. We argue about everything. I'm being a little bit mean to you right now. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we don't take the time to understand the most basic principles of our faith, but yet we have an opinion about everything. And when I mention the temple, people start pulling out their hairs. No! And the only way you can understand it is through temple protocol. Leviticus chapter 15, verse 16, and verse 15 and 16. Let's go there real quick so you see what I mean. I got off the topic, but it's okay. I'll come back to it. It just occurred to me when I read that verse. In Leviticus 15, verse 16, verse 15 and 16 says this. Thus you shall make atonement for the sanctuary and for the Israelites, impurities and for their transgressions and for all their sins. So he must do for the tent of assembly, which dwells with them in the midst of all their impurities. And no person shall be in the tent of assembly when he enters to make atonement in the sanctuary until he comes out. So he shall make atonement for himself and for the family and for all of Israel's assembly. So there was atonement. A Jew would ask you that. What do you need Jesus? We have atonement already. And it says, and Aaron shall place his two hands on the living goat's head, and he shall confess over all the Israelites iniquities and all their transgression for all their sins. And he shall put on the goat's head, and he shall send it into the wilderness, and men standing already. Thus the goat shall bear on it to a barren region all the guilt, and he shall send the goat away into the desert. Interesting. Now, look how it reads in verse 23, 24. It says, and Aaron shall enter the tent of assembly, he shall take off the linen garments. Let me go to verse 24. And he shall wash his body in water in a holy place. And he shall put on the garments and go out to sacrifice his burnt offering. And the people's burnt offering, he shall make atonement for himself and for the people. And he must turn and smoke and the sin offering and the fat on the altar. So now we got a problem, guys. There was atonement for the cleaning of the tabernacle and for the people of Israel every year. So what do we need Jesus for? It's a great question that we don't want to ask. A Jew will ask you. You know how I know? Because when I went to Israel in 2004, a Jew asked me the question. I have no idea what in the world I was talking about. You know how shameful it is to be considered a teacher and you go to Israel and when it matters, you don't know what to say? It was shameful. I came back and I started studying. Because the Torah cannot have a solution for death. It doesn't. It cannot justify you from death. It can give you blessings. It can put you in the realm of life. The gift of salvation is only God can give you. And that's what Hebrews is trying to convey to you. That the sacrifices could not do for you what God did through the Messiah. The remission about death. Now, that's exactly what Paul would go and teach in the synagogues. He was teaching them that. He was basically telling the same thing. The Torah cannot justify you from death. That's the whole core of the whole Bible. So when you go into a synagogue and he opens the Torah, he starts with the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was empty and void. And the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters of the sea. That's the message of resurrection. Resurrection. And the Spirit of God breathed the breath of life on Adam. He was just a dead man walking. He was just no purpose, no function. God made him out of dust of the earth, right? And then he breathed the breath of life. And what did he do? He breathed his life on him, and then he placed him in the garden. That the garden is where death doesn't exist. Resurrection. The flood story, resurrection. The whole message is resurrection. Joseph's come out of the pit. He goes to Egypt. First coming of Messiah. They're eating while he's in the pit. A type and shadow of the future Passover. Right? And then he goes into the nation of Egypt, the diaspora. And then there, he is raised up to a level of honor, second in command. And then he disappears for 20 years. 2,000 years. Resurrection. Now you see him coming on a chariot as a king or a leader. Oh my, how much clearer can it be? But everyone only depends on the story of Joseph. But yet, the story crossing the Red Sea, we talked about that last night, is resurrection. Crossing the River Jordan, resurrection. Yeshua told us, just as the sign of Jonah. What did Jonah do? He was on a ship. He says, yo guys, just throw me in the water. And then the storm ceased. People on the ship converted. Well, was Jesus there? There was not Jesus there on the ship. Read the last 3 verses of chapter 1 of Jonah. They all converted. They made vows and sacrifices. Yeshua told us to look at the sign. And then he's thrown in the sea. And then the fish eat him up. Basically, he died. And then he's resurrected. And then he goes to Nineveh, the city of fishes. No wonder they repented. The city of fishes, and this guy came out of the fish. His God is greater than ours. We repent. Resurrection. It's all through the Bible. If we go back to the context. So you notice what I'm trying to do with you here in the book of Acts is the same thing that I've been trying to do in ancient Near Eastern history. To show you those motifs throughout the history. Does that make sense? I don't mean to be mean to you, but we need to be challenged. You know, we need to be challenged, guys. I mean, we have a huge mandate. And what I don't think, and I take responsibility, and I'm guilty, I was part of that problem that we're trying to scare people out of their minds. And we're not giving them the tools in order for them to defend their faith. And that's the reason why I'm doing this. And I want to thank you, Mike, for allowing me the platform to come and share this. Trust me, I'm not trying to share this because I want to pretend to know more than you. I'm sharing it because I love you enough that I want to spend as much time as I can to share some things that may be able to enhance your relationship with the Creator so that you can come closer to Him and say, I get it, I understand. It's not a contradiction now. I know Torah is binding no matter what, and I understand my role to play in all of this. Paul knew it. So he will go. Now watch this. This is really interesting. I want to read this to you, which is actually the Rite of Assembly. I read a little bit about it, but I want to give you the evidence. Okay, you can find this on Paul Trebilco, Jewish Communities in Asia Minor. It's a really good book. Sister, you asked me about that. This is a great resource. Paul Trebilco, Jewish Communities in Asia Minor, okay? Really good book. It says, a prerequisite for Jews who wanted to have communal life was the right of assembly. This should not be taken for granted, especially when one remembers that Julius Caesar forbade most of the collegia from meeting in Rome. In other words, no private assembly. Julius Caesar, he wanted no sedition. He wanted nothing. By the way, remember when the Gospels, and the letters of Paul, when he says, be aware of the messengers? And people argue, they're angels. No, they were meeting in homes. They were not supposed to meet in homes. Remember, they got kicked out of the synagogue, remember? So now they're meeting in homes, which was by and large illegal according to Roman law. So they were being careful how they were meeting, Be aware of the messengers. Who are the messengers? The people going around making sure no one is creating private meetings to create sedition against the empire. That was a good place to say, I never knew that. All right. I worked hard for that one, by the way. It says, the right of assembly is mentioned several times in documents addressed to the Jewish community in Asia Minor. For example, Julius Gaius wrote to the inhabitants of Perio, noting that Julius Caesar had explicitly exempted the Jewish synagogues of Rome from the ban of collegia. So they can meet in the synagogues. Okay, by the way, I went to the place where the modern day synagogue, which is incredibly beautiful, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So I asked in the museum there, do you know what the original synagogue was, more or less? He goes, yeah, we have an idea. You go, they gave me the address. We crossed the bridge, a bridge that was built 200 or 300 years before Messiah, still there. It's incredible. Paul would have walked through there. It was amazing. I didn't realize the importance of that bridge until I got home. Because as I'm walking through, I noticed that in the middle of the bridge, there's a river, the Tabor River, the river, actually. I have internet, right? Do I have internet? Okay, so we have the Tabor River. We have, is it, no, Tiber, I think it is. Tiber River. Yeah, of Rome. I think it will give it to me, I'm not sure. Tabor. Yeah, this one. Rome trips. River, yeah, this one. That's the river. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, that river. Now, I want you to notice in the middle. You see that in the middle? See that? That's an island. That's an island smack in the middle. And when I'm going through that bridge, you see that bridge in the far? Yeah. When I'm going on that bridge, I'm thinking, that's kind of strange. It looks like a boat. Sure enough, it was built like a boat. There was the first hospital in Rome, by the way. You know how that happened? They went to Greece. In Greece, they went to the god Asclepius. Okay, so they come back to the Tiber River, and they're going up to Rome, and they selected that area to be the capital because for some reason a serpent came out of the boat. Again, the serpent came out of the boat, and then basically went into that island, and then the boat got anchored on that little sandbar or whatever. So they decided the gods had picked this place to be the place for the temple of Asclepius. So it was the oldest, to this day, it's a hospital there. And that originally was a temple to Asclepius, who was the god of healing in the Greco-Roman world. So I'm walking through and I see a hospital. I'm going like, that's weird. A hospital in the middle of an island. No, that's the hospital today still. And there was the original hospital, a temple to Asclepius. That's crazy. Isn't that cool? Strange, but cool. So anyway, I don't know what I was trying to tell you anyway, so I figure I'll show you this. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyway, so let's move on. So it says, likewise, he allowed Jews of Parium to gather and celebrate festivals according to their tradition. It is evident that some Jewish communities in Asia Minor were granted the right of assembly when such a grant was necessary. We also know that permission was granted to build a synagogue. The people of Halicarnassus passed a decree stating that the Jews may build places of prayer near the sea according to their ancestral customs. Remember I was telling you about the waters? Yeah. This is Antiquities of the Jews. Josephus talked about this. Okay, and this is right here, the port of Thessalonica. Okay, right here, that's my daughter-in-law. I was literally in the corner of the synagogue. I'm standing in the corner where the ancient synagogue was, and I took that shot because I want you to see the sea in the backdrop. It's exactly what the text Josephus says. That's where the synagogue was. And what's interesting, I would have never known if I didn't go to the Jewish museum. It was in the Jewish museum that my son reading it, he says, hey, by the way, did you know that the original synagogue that was here in the time of Paul is actually down the road? Look, this is the street. It's telling you the corner and everything. So we went there and I recorded there. That's amazing, right? Okay, good. I'm all excited. I get pumped about this stuff. You kidding me? So Paul was there 3 weeks straight. So he was following Sabbath. So listen to what it says. He says, this Yeshua who I proclaim to you is Messiah. It went out again. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, great. And it says, the Yeshua who I'm proclaiming to you is Messiah, and some of them were persuaded to join Paul and Silas and all the large number of God-fearing Greeks, and not a few of the prominent women. Now follow that, it's very important. But the Jews were filled with jealousy and taking along some worthless men. Now they knew, by the way, now this is important, by the way, because people don't catch on to this. Remember, they have the right of worship. But according to Torah, according to Roman law, when you read the story of Gallio in Corinth, and they took Paul to the bema, remember? And Gallio says, does this have something to do with your law? He goes, yeah, you deal with it. It's out of our jurisdiction. And the reason is because the Roman Empire gave jurisdiction to the Jews. In matters of the Torah, they can get to rule. We want nothing to do with it. Just pay our taxes. Don't ruin the Roman way of life. You get together in your synagogue. You keep your feast. Pay your tax to the temple if you want to. But don't bother us with your problems with the law. So this is important. They knew this. This is how I know they were actually doing according to Roman law. So it says, but the Jews were filled with jealousy and taking along some worthless men. Okay. See what picture. I forgot what picture I have here. Oh, this is a remnant of the city. Right here. I didn't get a chance to go in. It was closed that day. So we have to go record all around. It's kind of a bummer. Hopefully when I go back, it's open. But that was all that remains. And by the way, from here to the right of the picture, there's a huge plaza. Huge plaza. And I'm thinking, that's kind of strange to have that plaza there. Then I realized that it was it used to be an artificial harbor, just like in Ephesus. In Ephesus, they built an artificial harbor so that the water can go as a port right into the city. It's really amazing. Okay? Okay. All right, so watch. He says, taking along some worthless men from the rubble in the marketplace, and I just showed you the picture where they were in the marketplace, and forming a mob through the city into an uproar and attacking Jason's house. They were looking for them to bring them out of the popular assembly. Remember, the guys doing this are not the Jews. They enticed the regular population of Greeks, and in this case, Roman Greeks, to do this to Paul and Jason, and there's a reason for it. And you're going to know that this is important. It says, but the Jews I already read that, right? And attacking Jason's house, they were looking for them to bring them out on the popular assembly. When they did not find them, they dragged Jason and some of the brothers before the city officials, shouting, pay attention, these people have stirred up trouble throughout the world, the empire. That means that, can somebody look up on Google what year was the letter to Thessalonians written? It's important you know this. Because you see, we study the book of Acts, but we never consider the timetable. We think it's all happening at the same time. There are years between chapters, by the way. There are months between chapters. This was written very late, much, much later. You know, I mean, what year? 49 to 51. Now you need to ask the question, what was going on in the temple in Israel and also in Rome? Claudius was the emperor, and he kicked the Jews out of Rome. You need to know who the emperor is when you read these chapters. If you know who the emperor is, you know what's going on in the Greco-Roman world, then you can facilitate to understand the storyline and what's happening. It's just like Biden. The last 4 years, what a nightmare. Oh, my Lord. But in history, you'll never know unless you know who the president is. Carter, Biden. then you know how bad they were. Right? So, but you have to know the president, then you know. How come we don't do that with the Bible? Now, when you read the storyline, you read the chapter, stop and say, okay, what year was this? How do I know? It's giving you information. It's giving you information. So once you get that clue of information, you say, the emperor was this guy. What was going on in the empire during Claudius? Oh, he kicked all the Jews out. What happened during Nero? Oh, he was nuts. He actually started a fire in Rome and blamed all the believers. It's crazy. All right. He killed his own family, by the way. So, huh? Me? I got to write my thesis for my doctorate. I don't know how to do it. I'd rather do the videos. It says, what verse was I? Okay, here we go. He's throughout the world have come here also. So the reputation already gone. Whom Jason has entertained as guests. It says, and the people are all acting to the... and these people are all acting contrary to the decrees of Caesar, saying, there's another king, Yeshua. So I got a question for you. What are the decrees of Caesar? That's not the answer. Right, but what does that mean? I mean, this is important. It's so cool because when you look into the evidence, it's fascinating. It really is. Let me read it to you. Let me read you one of them. Check this out. This is from the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Commentary on the New Testament. Okay? And John in the book of Acts by Clinton Arnold. I'm giving you the resource so you can write it down. Okay? It says, Caesar's decrees. It says, the Roman Caesar issued decrees, dogma. Keep that in mind. Warning anyone about predicting a change of ruler over the empire. Caesar Augustus issued an edict in the year 11 AD, explicitly forbidding the use of astrology to predict his or anyone else's death. The Emperor Tiberius reaffirmed his decree, dogma, by putting to death foreigners who ignore it. In response to these decrees, some cities, this is important, some cities pledge their commitment to the Caesar by affirming oath of loyalty. An example of such oath comes from the city of Pamphylia in Asia Minor, dated in the year 3 BC. Now, for the record, I do not hold this oath at all. I reject any of this oath. I'm only reading this for the sake of education. Just making sure, because I understand what oath is about. Okay? So they believe this is an example of one of the oaths. I swear that I will support Caesar Augustus, his children, his descendants, throughout my life in word, deed, and thought, that in whatever concern them I will spare neither body nor soul nor life nor children, that whatever I see, hear of anything being said, planned or done against them, I will report it. And whomever they regard as enemies, I will attack and pursue with arms and the sword by land and by sea. Now you know why they were turning them in. They had to. They swore an oath of allegiance to the emperor. And that's why the Jews, they knew what they were doing. The Jews there, who didn't want nothing to do with the believers in Yeshua, they recruited the people of the land to tell them, hey, they're teaching there's another king. And because they swore allegiance to the emperor, they had to turn them in. They were doing according to what an oath was supposed to be. They were doing the right thing according to the law. But it was the Jewish people in that synagogue who turned them in because of jealousy. You follow? Did that make sense? How many of you have never heard of this of the oath? It's something new to you. Cool. Let me read you another one. From another commentary. This is from Divine Honors of Caesar, First Christian Response. A great resource. Okay? Okay, listen to what it says. Another king, Jesus, and the decrees of Caesar. The charge leveled against the Christians in Thessalonica was by the giving their allegiance to another king. Yeshua, they rejected the rule of the present Caesar, Claudius. See, now you know, Claudius was the emperor. He threw the Romans out, the Jews out of Rome. Now you know why Romans was written. Because of the argument between the believers in Yeshua who were Jewish and the believers in Yeshua who were actually Roman, creating chaos against the people in the community. Why? Because they're preaching a different empire now, a different kingdom, the kingdom of God versus the kingdom of Rome. A different Lord, the Kyrios, Yeshua as the Lord versus the emperor. That's sedition, according to them. That's what we're doing. Have you ever considered the message of Paul as an anti-imperial message? It's a political message. And here we don't want to get involved in politics. In the meantime, Nazis and socialists and fascists and communists are running the country. Thank you, Lord, for not putting Kamala La Mala on there. We would have been in ruin already. No, just wait. When the whole thing come out with all the billions of dollars being stolen, investigate them all. I feel sorry for all of them. I don't know. Walking the street for those guys is going to be very dangerous. Just remember, I'm not endorsing any violence against anybody. I'd rather they arrest them. Send them to Guantanamo. Or maybe charge them with treason. But you know what happens, right? Okay. Look for the penalty of treason. No piece of cake. And it says, they rejected the rule of the present Caesar Claudius. They were thereby seen as denying their oath of loyalty to him and rejecting the legitimacy of his official decrees. When both the citizens and the authorities heard these things, they were naturally very disturbed, like it says in 17:8. And they threw the crowd into confusion. And the city officials who heard these things, they were really concerned. Did you realize what would have happened if it gets to the emperor that the community heard of someone teaching sedition and the leaders did nothing? That would have basically brought the wrath of the empire on Thessalonica. The emperor would have destroyed the leadership and may pillage the whole city because they would have broken the oath, and that would have opened the seed of sedition in which that would have permeated through the whole kingdom, and that was not allowed. A vassal cannot turn against their suzerain. God did it. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 13. You see what happens in the book of Deuteronomy when you read it, chapter 13. After a false prophet. If a false prophet stands in your midst and dreams, dreamer of dreams, if he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign of the wonder comes about, that he spoke about to you, it's not saying the dream and the wonder is not going to happen. He's telling you, even if a miracle happens, saying, let us go after all the gods, those whom you do not know, and let us serve them. You must not listen to the words of the prophet and to the dreamer, for the Lord your God is testing you to see whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. You shall go after the Lord your God, to hold him shall revere, and his commandments you shall keep, and his voice you shall listen. To him you shall serve, and to him you shall hold fast. Now pay attention. But the prophet and the dreamer of the dream shall be executed. You know why? Because everyone quoted the Shema. That's an oath of loyalty. And it says, but the prophet and the dreamer of dreams shall be executed, and he spoke falsely about the Lord your God, and one bringing you out of the land of Egypt and redeeming. Now, verse 6, watch. If your brother, the son of your mother, and your son and your daughter, your wife whom you embrace, or your intimate friend in secrecy says, let us go and let us serve any other gods that you and your ancestors have not known, from among the gods of the people who are around you, those near you and those far from you, from one of the ends of the earth to the other end of the earth, you must not give in to him. You shall not listen to him, and your eyes shall not take pity on him, and you shall not have compassion, and you shall have not cover up for him, and you shall certainly kill him, and your hand shall be first against him to kill him, and the next hand. Wait a minute, it's the same thing. Isn't that the same thing as the decree of Caesar? Except this is the decree of God to his people. Oath of loyalty. not accepting any other God. So why are we surprised that the Romans are doing the same thing? Everyone did it. The Canaanites did it. Mesopotamians did it. The Hittites did it. The Egyptians did it. That's the way they function. Have you ever considered Deuteronomy 13 in that light? So that's why we're blessed. We don't live in a theocracy right now. In a way, I'm glad. I'm calling it we're blessed right now because we all will die. It's a blessing that God's given us, a mercy. I should use mercy. Because if we live in a theocracy right now, all of us will be dead. Because we put up with people doing the wrong thing, and we never stand up for what is wrong just because we don't want to hurt their feelings. We don't understand what loyalty is. We don't even understand the importance of oath. Do we really understand Deuteronomy 13? Are you willing to be that loyal to God? Let's be real, no. But then we're surprised when in the New Testament, then we say, oh, look at those Jews. They turned them over. Yeah, because it's during Claudius. It's during the time of the Emperor Claudius. The whole world is upside down. He threw the Jews out of Rome. Do you realize what that meant? We are next. Where are we going to go? And now these Jews are saying, this guy comes over, is creating chaos. We're trying to survive Claudius, and he's preaching another king that we don't recognize. We don't know who this Yeshua is. And now they're jealous because now they're losing people. So they're doing what anybody would do in that circumstance. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying there's normal behavior now. I get it. I understand it. That's why they recruited the people from the community to do their dirty work. They knew they couldn't do it. That make sense? Are you enjoying this? I am. I'm having a great time. Watch this. They were thereby seen as denying. I already said that. So, such a reaction is understandable when recognizing, when cognizance is taken of the annual oath of loyalty sworn to the emperor in Rome. The one sworn of Augustus in the year 6 of March in the year BC provides evidence like this. Oh, okay. Now, again, for the record, I'm only reading the information. In no way do I hold what I'm reading to be true. My loyalty is only to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I raise my hand in an oath that I'm in covenant with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through Yeshua the Messiah. I have to say that because I'm going to read this. Okay? Now, I swear by Zeus, earth, sun, and all the gods and the goddesses, and Augustus himself, that I will be favorable disposed towards Augustus and his children, his descendants, at all time of my life. I will spare neither my body, nor my soul, nor my life, nor my children, but in every way, for find that affect them, I will undergo every danger, and whatever I will perceive and hear against them being said or plotted or done, I will report it, and I will be an enemy to the person saying or plotting or doing any of these things. If I do anything against this oath, I pray that there may come upon me, my body, my children, and all my family destruction, total destruction to the end of my line and all of my descendants, and may neither the bodies of my family nor of my descendants by earth, sea, be received, nor may they bear fruit for them. In the same words was this oath sworn by all the inhabitants of the land in the temple of Augustus, by the altar of Augustus. Oh, Lord have mercy. Talk about an oath of imprecation. They knew that if they took this oath, they are bound by that oath, and they needed to do whatever. That's loyalty to an oppressor. We swear allegiance to God through Yeshua the Messiah, and the first thing that comes against us, we freak out and we go back to church. Or we abandon him, finding fault with the New Testament, and we go to Judaism. We abandon everything. Or we don't like each other because we don't agree with our theologies. We don't talk to each other anymore. We have no loyalty. Oh, we love the Lord. No, we don't. We don't know what is tribulation and persecution. Remember, this is happening during the time of Claudius. So they understood what is persecution. I mean, how many of you not understanding what is called the decrees of Caesar and the importance of the oath? How many of you never seen the oath until today? You see that you read that chapter and you're going like, wow, that's serious. I didn't know that. I'm not justifying the Jews, by the way. I'm not justifying them. They did wrong. They did wrong. Just like nowadays, sometimes in their zeal not to accept anything that looks different than what they do, they turn against Yeshua. Right? But we turn against them too. Mention something Jewish in some communities. Their hairs will fall out. They'll freak out. Start screaming out of their minds. That's Jewish. No, I don't want to do that. We still have a lot to learn, both of us. We're still trying to reconcile many things. And the reason why I'm trying to share this with you is so that you understand that when you read the narrative in the New Testament and you see so many people who are rejecting Yeshua under duress, just like the Inquisitions, just like what was going on, the Jews, converting to Christianity because they wanted to survive, hiding their identity. That's an end result for not obeying the Torah. If we would have obeyed the Torah, we would not be in this circumstance right now. You know what I'm saying? It has a root. It still doesn't justify the aggression and the persecution of on the nations. But remember when we said anything that the Lord has said, we will obey and do? Remember in Deuteronomy chapter 26 and 27, when they put the tribes in one side of the Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, and they start going through the blessings and curses, and it says, amen, amen, amen. And then chapter 28 comes in telling you all the blessings if they obey and all the things if they disobey. And everything that's happened to our people is actually the result of the transgression of that oath. I never understood why the Roman Jews, because they were Roman Jews. They're still there to this day. There are Jews in Rome that are still descendants of the Jews that came when Pompey destroyed the temple. That's before Yeshua, about 150 years before Yeshua. They never went back. They went there as slaves and they stayed. And then you have the second wave after the destruction of the second temple period. And then there was no going back to anything. But why wouldn't you not go back to Israel? Because they received citizenship. They got in as slaves. They received citizenship. So they became prosperous and stay there. Just like today in New York. Just like today in California. Just like today in Europe. And God is trying to, push the envelope a little bit because he needs his people to return to the land. He promised them an inheritance and protection. We just never. There are many people who will go anywhere but Israel. Many people who follow Torah, they will go everywhere. Give them a vacation. They'll pick everywhere to go except Israel. The moment I mention Israel, oh, no. The Lord has not called me there now. But they're making plans to go someplace else. It's crazy. You made an investment to go to the land of the king. Make sure you invite it, because if not, he'll spit you out. Ask him to invite you. I want to go to the land of the future inheritance. You go there to see what he's going to give you in the millennial reign. All right, let's move on. It says, I'm going to move here. I'm going to jump here. I want to get to Athens. Is that good? You with me? Okay, cool. All right, so Paul in Athens. And I'm really not going to give you a lot of, I want to focus on something specifically. Let me read the text. It says, now while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, his spirit was provoked within him when he observed the city full of idols. He was discussing in the synagogue with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles in the market and in the marketplace every day, those who happened to be there. And even some of the Epicurean and the Stoics, philosophers, were conversing with him, and some were saying, what does this babbler want to say? But others says, he appears to be proclaimer of a foreign deities because he was proclaiming the good news about Yeshua and the resurrection. Oh, well, have you studied who the 4 types of people? Stoicism, Epicurean, they have different groups. They all believe different things. Have you ever considered looking into what they believe, the Epicureans, what they believe? If you understand what they believe, then you understand what Paul was trying to say. Okay? So I'm not going to read that. It takes too long. But I'm trying to go here somewhere. The Agora. Let me see if I have a picture. There we go. This is the Agora. It's in Spanish here, but the picture is not. Okay? Then you have the marketplace. Now, in the marketplace, hopefully I got the internet. Yeah. In the marketplace, there it is. Now, this is important. When I walked into the Athens, and I'm going to explain to you what that is in a minute. It's going to make a lot of sense. What you have is the entrance. Literally, I was standing right over here when I walked up. And I looked for this right away. I saw it and I took a picture. And I began to locate. I went here on the top of the picture, which is the Acropolis. So I was up there first. We walked around the city and we came right here. And we entered here. I saw a road, this road, right here. Now, this is a list of all the temples that you see. That was important to me. Because when we read the verse, it's going to make sense. Young people, this is for you. Okay? What you see here is a temple. It has the numbers. And they all have, there were temples and stuff. The Bema is number 15 right here. That's the first thing I was looking for when I got there. Where the Paul stood to speak. Remember, he's talking to these people. So he went to the Bema. So I know where he was in front of the Stoa. The Stoa is actually, 13. The Stoa of Athalos. Okay, now, this is the main road. This road actually is like the Anithia, but to get to Greece, this is the main road. I mean, the most important one. And then you have this one, number 26, is actually altar of the 12 gods. In other words, that's the altar of the unknown gods. That you know. The 12 gods. We don't know. And then you have number 12 is the Altar of Agrippa right here. Number 22 is the temple of Ares. Number 18, another temple. There's at least 8 temples. And Paul is looking from here. And to his left, if I'm standing in the Bema, right over here, you have the Mars Hill right here, Areopagus. Are you with me? Are you with me? And then on the hill, you have the Acropolis. There were like 3 temples there. So you have like 7, 8 temples over here. So when he's speaking, all he's seeing is temples everywhere made by hands of worshiping other gods. Keep that in mind, okay? I'm going to keep asking you if you're with me because I want to make sure you got this. See if I have the same picture or another picture. The best way I could do is, here we go. This is the Bema he stood. This is where he stood. See, now I'm looking from the Stoa behind me. That's the road right in front of me, right here. That's the road right there. Everyone would have been walking through there. Paul was standing on the speaker's platform. That's what it's called. He was a Roman citizen, so he can do it there. And this is the road that I'm talking about. And look where it goes. It goes all the way to the Acropolis. That's the main road. Okay? Yes? Okay, so let me show you a video of this area so you understand what I mean. I want you to see it for yourself. I got to find it now. There we go. Have the Parthenon, you have the Acropolis. It's a very important building and the mythology of the Greeks in the ancient world. But Paul was taken after he was speaking to the people down there in the Roman Agora, and he was challenging the Stoics, and he was challenging the philosophers, and actually speaking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on the altar that nobody knew, of the unknown God. Now, I want to read you this verse. It says, so Paul stood there in the middle of the Areopagus. We are right now literally standing on that rock that is called Mars Hill. And it's important because I want to read you a little bit about this place. It's called Mars Hill, and it's called the Areopagus. And it's a hill in Athens where Paul conversed with the Athenian council in Acts 17, verse 19 and 22, a prominent feature in ancient Athens. And it was here that Paul preached a sermon about the unknown God. Now, I'm not really going to expound much the history of this place. I will do that at a later date when I get home and I'm able to do more teachings on this topic. But I really want to emphasize something that Paul is trying to convey. And I decided to take this place right here to shoot the video because I want you to see what's behind me. Now, many people take this verse in the book of Acts out of context. Let me quote you the verse, then I'm going to read verse 22 in context where we're at. Cultural context is very important for the understanding of the Bible, something that I keep telling my students. Now, in verse 24, and this is what people always use to always disregard the temple of Israel in Jerusalem. They use this verse to basically speak against the temple in Jerusalem, when in fact, the context of what Paul was saying had all to do with what's going on here, specifically with the temple of Athena, with the Stoas, with all the temple, imperial cult, and the temple behind me. It says, the God who made the world and all the things in it, the one being the Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made of human hands. And I hear that all the time. When I teach about the Beit HaMikdash, the temple of Jerusalem, they always quote me that verse. But yet, when I'm here, then you understand its context. The context is, if Paul is here in the Agora, down the hill, and he's speaking about the unknown God, and now he's saying to them, I'm bringing the message, and he's making a contrast between what the Greeks and what the Romans were seeing and their temples compared to the God of Israel and who he is. Now, with that being said, with the Acropolis behind me on my right shoulder, you'll see what I mean. Paul stood there in the middle of the Areopagus, right here where I'm standing. Men of Athens, I see you are very religious in every respect, for I was passing through and observing carefully your objects of worship. I can see them here. I can see the temple of Athena. I can see the Acropolis. There's 3 temples up there. And it says, even found an altar in which is inscribed to the unknown God. Therefore, what you worship without knowing is that I proclaim this to you. He's actually proclaiming the God of Israel from the only thing that it was here, that it was not permeating with idolatry, the altar of the unknown God. And he utilized the mindset of the Greek and the Roman people against them. They're looking for gods, and there's an altar to one that no one knows. And he says, I'm serving the one that you don't know. And then he says, the God who made the heavens, the God who made the world and all the things in it, this one, being the Lord of heaven and the earth, does not live in human temples. That's the one he is talking about, because he would have seen that from this spot there. Okay, watch. You see the store right here? Follow the cursor. You see that? He would have been standing there without the trees and the bema. He's looking at the temple of Ares in front, the Acropolis to his left, and about 6 other temples that are still remnants there. And he would have been in Mars Hill, Areopagus, right over here on the top right. Do you see how going there now makes sense? So when somebody now quotes me Acts chapter 17 to talk against the temple in Jerusalem, it's like hitting a 3-0 fastball. I just sit there. I was a baseball player. And it's like you have 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1. Those are the favorable counts to hit. It's like when you have 3-0 count, you just wait for the fastball to come down the middle of the plate. That's what I get when people tell me, well, Acts 17 says, and the baseball looks this big. And I'm getting ready to just hit it out of the ballpark because they have no idea of the cultural context. It's not like I'm smarter than them. It's just that I was able to go there to understand really the context of what was said. And that's the benefit of going to these places. Is that making sense? Does the video help? is in contrast with what's surrounding him in the time period and when he is located. Not that he is speaking against the temple in Jerusalem. Context, context, context. And when you come to these places and you understand the topography, the geography, and you learn about the archaeology, now the text makes more sense and the narrative lines up with its context. Along the way, the Panathenaic Way, which is the Panathenaic Way, that's the road. So now, this is only an example when you read the book of Acts, and then you understand when you go there. And I actually had caught on to it when I was there. It was on Friday night. We're staying at home because I stayed in the Airbnb. I was getting ready for the next, after Shabbat on Sunday to go. On Monday, I was going to Athens, but I was making all my notes on the computer. All those tags that you see there, I was studying the whole day on Shabbat, getting all the information for the Monday when I got to the location to record. And as I'm reviewing the information, I'm looking at all the pictures. I'm going like, I told my wife, oh my, I can now talk to these people and refute them with evidence because now I'm here and I was able to see it. I'm telling you, man, making these trips, and I need you to do me a favor. Would you please pray that the Father provides? Because right now I'm going in March. I have to provide my own funds to go. But I'm doing it because it's a benefit to you. I want you to be blessed. I want you to get these videos. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, but it's worth it because not many people are doing it in the Hebrew roots. I haven't seen it. I don't know if there is, but I haven't seen it. And I'm hoping that I could be of help to the communities because we get all these arguments. My Christian brothers will come around. They want to argue about certain things. And I want you to have the tools. Maybe you can't be there. Maybe it's not your time right now. Well, maybe the video you can see it. By the way, you can go to wisdomintorah.com on YouTube and go for the playlist, and you can see all these videos for free. I put them there for free for everyone. You don't want to know how much it costs me to get there and what I have to do this. But it's worth it. It's worth it for me to do that so you'll be able to at least get more information. So what about the Areopagus? Do you know what that is? Anybody? Areopagus. That's the location that we're at. So let me tell you a little bit about this. I got pictures, so it'll be better if I have the pictures. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this place. The Areopagus, or Mars Hill, is one of the most prominent topographical features in ancient Athens. It reached a height of 377 feet. It appears to have received its name from its association with Ares, the Greek god of war, though some moderns have derived the name from something else. Ore, curses, interpreted as a term of designating the Furies, whose cave was located northeast slope of the hill. It was on the Areopagus that Paul stood in the year 51. We know the year, 51 of Common Era, when he delivered his sermon to the unknown God. The Acropolis, some 140 feet higher, stands a short distance to the southeast. And the Agora, which is the marketplace, where Paul talked with passerby and disputed with the Stoics and Epicurean philosophers before being taken to the Areopagus, spread out below, almost directly to the north on his ascent from the Agora. Paul probably would have rounded the precipitous northeast brow of the hill and the cave of the Furies above him, and to his right he would have climbed towards the summit. Let me keep reading here. Paul's conversion of Dionysus, the Areopagite. This guy converted. Complete pagan name. Do you know the ritual of Dionysus? The god of wine and sex is crazy. Okay? And he was the Areopagite. I can't pronounce that word. Whose surname signifies that he was a member of the council of the Areopagus. Gave the Hill Christian Association that have persisted into modern times. Dionysus himself became a patron saint of Athens as well, by tradition. Her first bishop and Christian martyr. The ruin of the Church of Dionysus, constructed in the 16th century. The Council of Areopagus, the ancient reference to the Council of Bold of the Areopagus are usually imprecise, and its history can for the most part be written only in general terms. named after the hill where it met. It descended from Homeric-style council of elders that advised the king. The council was long composed exclusively of aristocrats. So now you know the guy who believed in Yeshua was a very honorable, high-level person. Now Paul has inroads into the upper echelon of the Greek culture because he's dealing with important people. I mean, I could be talking to just regular people, but then if I meet the president of the United States, then I'll be able to hang around people that understand different levels of government. You follow? Doesn't make you any less. It's just that they have more connections. That's really what it means. Okay? So, and this is what it looks like. This is the picture that I took from the Acropolis right here. And this is me on top of Mars Hill looking towards the Acropolis. You may be asking, why do I put myself in all these pictures? I hate doing it. The reason is because in the Spanish world, there's actually, I have to be in the picture so they believe that I was there. I know. So that's why I do it. That's why I do the videos. That's why I do the pictures. So that way when people start arguing, I just go like this, click, and then, well, how do you know? Boom! I was there. And it gives you a sense of accountability. That's why in Israel, when you go to Israel, you know, Mike, we go everywhere in Israel. And when we go to Israel, we do videos everywhere we go. And it gives us a lot of credibility as a teacher because I've been to those places. And then you're able to identify who's speaking certain things, who is not speaking certain things. Does it make sense now when he says pagan temples and stuff? Okay. Thank you for your patience and thank you for being here all day. I really appreciate that you stayed. Okay, I know it's a long day, but it's Shabbat anyway and it's snowing, so I don't know what else you would do. Okay? I have to say it, I'm sorry. Now, check this out. I didn't show you this first. I want to show you the picture. Oh, I got it in Spanish. It's not going to help you. Right here. So Paul is standing. This is a better picture. Remember, this is the main street, right? So look at all the temples that he has. How many temples were there in the Agora, in the Forum? Temple of Athena and the Acropolis, Temple of Hephaestus, Temple of Ares, Temple of Apollo, Temple of Zeus, the altar of 12 gods, Sanctuary of Aphrodite. 7 temples. So now you understand what Paul is saying. When he's above here, the Acropolis is up here on the top. He's standing in the bema right here, next to the road. Remember, everyone's hearing it. And he's talking about the temples here within the Agora. He's not talking about the Jerusalem temple. So when somebody tells you, and they quote this verse 24 to talk about the temple in Jerusalem, please stop them. It's not the context. Does that make sense now? All right. And it says, now that we're heard about the resurrection of the dead, some scoff, and others says, we will hear you about this time, about this again. So Paul went out from the midst of them, but some people joined him and believed. Among them were also Dionysus, the Areopagite, and the woman named Damaris, and the other with them. Now, this is an important thing. I'm not going to cover Corinth today. I want to cover that tomorrow. But this is a very important thing to remember. Because now we have the message going not to Jewish people. By the way, it's interesting. Paul didn't go to the synagogue here. Why? He went, but then he went to the market. He first went to the synagogue, and then when he went to the market. Why would he go to the market? Right? If only the Jews can, think about this. If only the Jews can meet in their synagogues, why would he in the market? Why was he there? Yes, but it's interesting that he was able to do so because he was a Roman citizen. And that's why he's talking to the philosophers. Now he's talking about resurrection, correct? He's talking about resurrection. And have you studied the motif of resurrection in the Greco-Roman world? There isn't any. That's the problem. The myth about resurrection is very obscure. They're not really sure how that happens. That's why they have the gods of Greek or the Greeks, and they have the god of the Romans, and that's why they have so many gods. If this one cannot do the job, I go to this one. You know, that's the thing. I mean, look into it. Resurrection in Greco-Roman world, it really isn't much, and it was a revolutionary thing. Up to that point, death has not been defeated, and I keep bringing that up. The main point of the gospel was how death will be defeated. How God defeated death by the resurrection of Yeshua. And what it takes to be resurrected. Covenantal relationship, yes, but you have to be moral and righteous. So that Abraham was perfect in his generation, and he was righteous. Noah was perfect in his generation, he was righteous. Joseph was moral, and he was righteous. Remember, he passed the moral test, the test. When the wife of Potiphar wanted to test him and he ran away from her, he was moral and he was righteous. That's what God is looking for. Moral and righteous people. So he can enlarge his kingdom. And he's alive. Messiah is alive. Any questions about what we're talking about? I'm going to open the time for questions now on the topic. Okay?